So I want to talk about lucid dreaming, or my experiences with lucid dreaming. You know, I don't remember the very first lucid dream I ever had. What I do remember is the way I devised to figure out whether or not I was dreaming. Now, I've been reading some literature and watching some video blogs where people recommend different strategies when you're sleeping to cue yourself to the fact that you're actually dreaming. I remember one example was to check your hands frequently throughout the day, so that then when you're dreaming you might also look down and check your hands, and because when you do that you will realize that your hands don't look right. Something seems off, and that will trigger the response in your mind to say, oh wait, this isn't right. This can't really be happening. This must be a dream. Well, I never figured out a specific tell like that, but I just got myself used to asking the question, is this a dream? Am I dreaming? And it's not like I went through my waking life asking that question hour after hour. What I really would do is practice asking myself that question as I was settling in to go to sleep that evening. And when I had quieted myself, I would pretty much tell my subconscious that I wanted to become aware. Just be like, okay brain, listen up. And really I would be serious and I'd say, I want to become aware that I'm dreaming this evening. When I start to dream, I want something to trigger so that I will ask myself if this is a dream. Okay, well that's not quite enough, because I did eventually get to the point where I could occasionally do that. The next step was, when I asked myself, is this reality or is this a dream? Could I be dreaming? I then had to figure out a way to discern whether it was reality or a dream, and I came up with flying. Now, many people fly in their dreams, and I flew in my dreams all the time, whether I was aware of it. I was always aware I was flying, but you know, I often flew in dreams where I didn't know that I was dreaming. But in a lucid dream state, once I asked that question, is this a dream? My next step was to say, well, I'll figure it out. If this is a dream, I will be able to do something that I can't do in reality. I'll be able to fly. So I would then begin to flap my arms vigorously, because in my dreams I never flew, you know, like an elegant superhero. There's none of this arms outstretched fluttery cape business for me. No, my flying was more like the flying of a giant clipped winged bird, like a vulture or a dodo. Well, dodos can't fly anyway, but couldn't fly anyway. So I would begin to flap my arms, and the moment I began to rise up off of the ground, I would, you know, basically scream Eureka in my dream head, and know then at that moment that I was dreaming. Well, I often got so excited by this realization that I would then start to wake myself up. And that was a horrible feeling. You know, it was like I could feel myself rising through the different layers or levels of consciousness toward wakefulness and light. And it was the exact opposite, in a sense, of the feeling you have when you are underwater and you desperately need a breath of air. You know, then you look toward the light and you can't wait to break the surface and get that big gulp within your lungs. But in the lucid dream state, it was the opposite. You felt yourself being pulled up, and it was, for me at least, it was almost as if the air that I wanted to breathe was the air of the dream state. I wanted to stay there. I did not want to break the surface into reality. So that was the next step I had to conquer. And oddly enough, I tried to use the same sort of calming techniques I used when I was underwater, because in my teens, my preteens and teens, I was a champion breath holder underwater. And when I say champion, I just mean in my neighborhood. But hey, that was something. The neighborhood boys could not stand it that I often beat them in underwater breath holding challenges. And I remember my ultimate moment of triumph was when I challenged the boy next door, who was the first chair trumpet player and therefore thought he had superior lung capacity, which he no doubt did have, but I realized it didn't really have anything to do with how much air you could pull into your lungs. It had more to do with how still you could stay once you immersed yourself. Because when I would go down, get my lungs full of air and go under the water, I always made sure I was by a ladder or some area where I could just place one hand as an anchor to keep me under, and then I would often take my other hand and cover my face, keep my eyes closed, and just pull my body into the smallest, calmest ball, and then just wait. Wait to hear the massive air bubbles being released by my opponent or my competitor, and wait to hear the thrashing of the legs, and then, you know, I often won. I usually won. But so, as that relates to lucid dreaming, in that when I finally learned to ask myself whether I was dreaming, and then learned to try to fly to confirm it, and then would begin to fly, I had to, in that moment, try to get myself as calm as possible, which is hard to do when you're flapping your arms. But to try to stay calm so that I didn't get too excited and then wake myself up. And when I began to do that on a more regular basis, it was such an accomplishment, because then I could fly anywhere and do anything. I hate to admit it, but I often would scare people in my dream, because even in my dream, not everyone could fly. So if they saw me flying, they would get totally freaked out, you know? And I can remember dreams where I would just, you know, fly at night and then swoop up to someone's window and scare them. Terrible. But it gave me a sense of power as a girl to do that. So I often did that in my lucid dreams. I also used my lucid dreams to have, well, you know, to act out sexual fantasies. But what I usually did, really, when I started to fly, because this was a period in my mid-20s when I was single, you know, unhooked and dating, and a bit lovesick for the boy, one of the boys who got away, you know. So I would ask myself in the dream to try and find the boy, and I would fly over mountains and parking lots and valleys looking for the boy. And I always felt this sense of it was going to happen, and I often felt that I woke up before it could happen. But I never did find the boy in that way. What ultimately did happen is I realized I could actually make him materialize, that I had that kind of power in my dreams. And that's the dream I want to talk about next time. Because unfortunately, I only have a few minutes to make this video. I substitute assisted in the toddler class, one of the toddler classes at Anna's Montessori school earlier, and I just have a little break in between where I get to come home and have lunch and do this, or whatever it is I choose to do, before I have to go and pick her up again. So I hope to be able to talk about that dream. Actually, what I felt like was one of my 3 ultimate lucid dreams, where I could make the boy materialize. Next time. All right.